existentialism, fallen angels, and Alan Rickman. All this and more on today's episode of An Askewed View. It's Dogma.
Hey guys, this is Travis Hayward with That's My Entertainment, and I'm here with Jordan Brandis here for another episode of An Askewed View, the Kevin Smith podcast, and today we're going to be talking about Kevin Smith's fourth film, Dogma.
What's up, guys? Yeah, this is one of my favorite films of the entire Kevin Smith catalog. I saw it when it first came out in theaters, and it blew me away. So yeah, I'm really excited to dive in. Let's see what it's all about. This is a different kind of film than his other films. I mean, we got to talk about that up front. His other films have been subversive and avant-garde, but not quite to this level.
Definitely. This one is really like kind of the first. I mean, up until this point, his movies have really been more about like real life, human relationships and, just kind of really low budget comedies, but really sort of based in some form of reality. But this is kind of the first movie where he branches out more into, like, the comedy's still there and the same slapsticky humor that we get before, but it's more of like an adventure kind of movie, really. And it kind of delves into, I don't know if I should use the word mythology, but definitely.
There's a whole discussion about mythology, Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pissed off when you use the word mythology.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so we're being kind of vague. I feel like for people that haven't watched it, because it is a little hard to watch now, I feel like we should explain what it's actually about.
Absolutely. Dogma tells the story of Bethany, a woman who works a formerly devout Catholic who's kind of losing her faith. She works in an abortion clinic. She's recently divorced, kind of down on her life, and she's visited one night by the Metatron, aka the voice of God, and played by Alan Rickman, and she is entrusted to journey with two familiar-faced prophets, Jay and Bob, to New Jersey. To stop, as she's from, I think she's from Chicago, actually. Yeah, she's from Chicago.
Yeah.
She's supposed to journey with Jay and Silent Bob to New Jersey to stop two renegade angels from entering the Catholic Mass at this specific church on a certain day because of the reasoning being because this ceremony that's taking place is meant to anyone who passes through the church's archways has all of their sins forgiven. So these two angels that have fallen from heaven want to get back into heaven, so they are going on this trip to New Jersey so that they can pass through this archway and have all of their sins forgiven, and then that way they'll be able to re-enter heaven. But what they don't know is in doing so will prove God wrong, and since God is supposed to be infallible, that will end up wiping out all of existence. So,
which is a fairly heavy plot, considering 2 films ago it was about people that just hung out at a mall and were trying to stop a game show.
Exactly. So it's so this one, it really kind of delves into, this is like it's, in a sense, it's a sort of road trip movie, but it's also a quest. Like, this is, it's not a road trip movie in the sense that, like, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot are. This one's really more of this is an actual quest with dire stakes and consequences that, there's villains in this. Well, a villain in this movie,
Right. So yeah. I actually just rewatched it before we started talking, like minutes ago. I finished it. Yeah. And I sort of reinforced an idea I had before from watching it, especially at the very, very end. I get a Wizard of Oz vibe to it. They're on a long quest, and they meet people along the way with these unique gifts, and then the people sort of have this going away conclusion. Like, you did it, you completed your thing, I'm going to leave you now and take my place. There's a very Wizard of Oz vibe to the whole whole movie.
Oh yeah, there definitely is. It's really, I mean, I mean, you're right. It is a very Wizard of Oz kind of. I'd also go to say, like, I mean, even kind of just like a fantasy quest, like even Lord of the Rings, maybe. Like if we want to kind of throw that in there, you know, just like a fantasy quest to stop a sort of evil being from overcoming this, you know. So it really does have that kind of you know, Wizard of Oz fantasy vibe, but.
So it should be noted, though, that when the movie came out, we talked about controversy and all that, and I think controversy now compared to controversy then is two very different things. Because it came out in like 1999 or so, and I remember that it was just, it blew up. It was everywhere because people were pissed off that the movie was coming out. The Catholic League, anybody, you know, Christian Catholics immediately hated this movie. They protested this movie. They boycotted this movie, and it was huge. And you know, unlike, you know, there's been very few films that have had that effect. You know, like Last Temptation of Christ, maybe, or you know, stuff like that. It just, you know, it suddenly became this huge ethical and moral deal about even going to see the movie. Became kind of a rebellious act.
Yeah, exactly, and it was really, I mean, yes, that had occurred. I mean, and it actually got really much more serious than a lot of the public was led to believe. I mean, in the news and everything. I mean, because Kevin, I was, I know from interviews with Kevin, he had said that he actually ended up getting a couple of death threats for this movie from people involved.
Given how much it escalated, I'm not at all surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's you know, it's crazy to think that would happen. I mean, but because that was he noted that because apparently that was the start of when their mail had to start getting checked at the offices because, you know, they were afraid that someone would have sent, you know, bomb or anthrax or something. But anyway, the protesting, that seemed to be going on a lot. You know, it seems like that usually. Well, maybe not so much these days. I've come to notice that with a lot of films of today, like there's been no protests for Jojo Rabbit, which is kind of bizarre.
You know, and granted, Jojo Rabbit pitches itself as a satire, like that's in the thing, but it just doesn't generate the same chaos that it once did, probably because of the sheer amount of content that's out. You know, you can almost ignore the fact that Jojo Rabbit came out, but in 1999, if a film gets released, you know about it. Everybody knows about it.
Yeah, that's true. That is a good point. Yeah, definitely. And it's and this was like, in '99 was such a crazy year for movies. I mean, that was the return of Star Wars, and I mean, of course, after everyone saw it, but. But that was
the Matrix, Fight Club, everything. 99 was a great year for movies.
The South Park movie,
Exactly, I mean, the interesting thing was, and again, our age difference is going to show here. I remember opening weekend for when Dogma came out, and I remember hearing about other protests, but that same weekend, or within a week or two, the movie Stigmata also came out. And I noticed that it was strange that the Catholic protests were focusing on Dogma and not Stigmata. It's like Stigmata just went completely under the radar because everybody was focused on this.
Yeah, that's you know, I didn't even think about that. That's a good point. Yeah, this that really does speak to our age difference there, because when Dogma first came out, I was very too young to see that in the theater. Honestly,
to be fair, I was technically too young too. I snuck in twice. I was 1999. It would have been 8th grade freshman year. So I went to my local movie theater and I paid for Pokemon the movie twice.
Oh no!
And snuck in a Dogma. So you actually went. I just used my ticket to get into the theater.
I remember going to watch that. Yeah, so that's what I saw. You saw Dogma. I actually laid down.
And to this day, I still haven't seen Pokemon the movie.
Oh, it's great. You should check it out. But with Dogma, I actually wanted to touch on this since we had mentioned the protests. Some people don't know about this as well. there was a theater in New Jersey. This was actually the last movie Kevin made before he made the move to Los Angeles. He was still living in New Jersey at the time, and there was a theater near where he had lived, I think in Red Bank, where there was protest being organized. It was opening weekend of Dogma, and so Kevin himself actually went. Him and his friend Bryan Johnson from Comic Book Men went to this theater and just basically they made their own picket signs that said things like Dogma is dog shit, and just the corny little things like that. But they went and actually protested their own movie, and Kevin himself was interviewed by the local news. Because they were picking random people from the audience, and apparently they had even asked him, you look an awful lot like the director Kevin Smith, and he said, I've been told that, but no, I don't know why people.
Which later became a plot point of reboot. But yeah,
yes, exactly, and it's crazy to think. And the clip is actually on YouTube. You can look it up. But yeah, it's crazy to just I'm like, that is the ultimate way of. Here's a big question though with Dogma. It created all this ruckus back then. And I know the world and the way how we get media is different now to then. But the question is, do you think it's still as controversial? I mean, so many things have come out that I would even consider more controversial than Dogma. I think they're just, I'm watching American Gods right now, and that's very much like Dogma. It's the same general concept as Dogma, that there are gods living among us, and the religion is kind of flexible and things like that, and you can come face to face with deities, and it's very casual and relaxed, and that's sort of what he introduced in Dogma. Like, you've got the two angels that they're angels, and one of them is actually the angel of death, but he loves cartoons, stuff like that. They just hang around in sweatshirts and jackets, and they know all about pop culture and things like that. It's not all biblical and fire and brimstone. It's not like that. Yeah, exactly. That's cool. I'm gonna have to check the show out. I'd actually never watched that, but yeah, it really, as far as it being still controversial today, I want to say, I don't think if it were released today, I don't think it would have. It kind of attributed to what you said. I don't think it would really stir up as much controversy. I mean, not only because there's so much content out there, but I feel like, at least in this country, not the world definitely, but at least in this country, it seems like a lot of the religion has seemed to kind of fade away from at least in entertainment and like the outrage and everything. Like, for example, when the creators of South Park did the Book of Mormon on Broadway, there were no major protests for that. The Mormonism,
and that's the same kind of thing. Yeah.
So there's really, there were no protests for that. Like I had mentioned, Jojo Rabbit. There's, which really, if you actually watch the movie, there's really no need to protest it. But it's, the trailer kind of raised some eyebrows because of its depiction of Adolf Hitler. But as far as things like that are concerned, I feel like we definitely do live in a more sensitive world now, but they're not so much sensitive, I feel, about movies in particular. They're more sensitive about things like politics and whatnot these days. But
our priorities have shifted a little bit.
Yeah. But so I don't know if I would say that it'd be as controversial today, but I feel like we are part of a generation that really, would give it more of a chance had it been released today. But also, if we want to talk about, like, is it still relevant today, I would say absolutely, because it's not only is it a great comedy, but it's also a great, there's a great story behind it in terms of, morals and.
It deals with universal concepts that, going back to Clerks and things like that, where no matter how old you are, you're going to relate a little bit. And the fact that he deals with religion It's one of those things that you can watch it 200 years from now, and assuming religion is still a thing 200 years from now, you're going to identify with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's there's actually a scene in it that I have gone back to many times in my life when Bethany is talking to her friend, her coworker in the abortion clinic, and about how she had just gone to church and she's not sure why she still goes, and her friend tells her the story about how when you're a kid, you basically equate religion to a glass of water. When you're a kid, the glass is smaller, so it's much easier to be filled. But as you get older, the amount of liquid stays the same, but the glass gets bigger. So, it's like, I kind of equate that to, at least personally, I mean, I equated that to when I was growing up, like my own, my own issues with faith. But it's just little things like that, I feel like that really kind of attributes to the brilliance of Kevin Smith. He just kind of, adds these little
very
things
big,
into his dialogue.
They're big questions that he managed to integrate into the dialogue. I mean, the role of the Mewes and the role of the Apostle, they take two different stances, but they both bring up very good points. The fact that, the writers, well, they both come back to the same point about, the Bible, that the writers had put their own bias into it and changed fairly fundamental things. And I mean, and just the concept of the Black Jesus or God as a woman or things like that. And it's just how much it changed our perception of pretty much everything. And they're big concepts that, there's so many faith-based films out there that like they try and take normal films and turn them into a preachy affair, right? This film is almost the opposite, where they take a normal film and there are heavy religious concepts in there, but you never feel like it's shoved down your throat.
Oh no, absolutely not. And it's it really feels kind of more of it feels like a real like they try to make because I don't know, I feel like a lot of the definitely a lot of the older religions seem to be kind of more built into a kind of a conservative telling, whereas this movie kind of breaks it down into more of like a liberal sense, like
right.
In the sense, well, it's like in the sense of like you were saying how Rufus the Apostle says that I was the 13th apostle, I was left out because I'm black, and the other apostles didn't, so it's it's really it kind of just breaks it down that way. And then also the quote that Salma Hayek's character has, the Muse, when she says, it doesn't really matter so much as to what you have faith in, just that you have faith,
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about the production of this a little bit, because as much as it's his fourth film, it was actually planned to be the second film. He wrote this before Clerks, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did. He wrote this around either before or around the same time as Clerks. But it was originally intended to be his second. But I mean, a movie like this, there's, good Lord, I mean, you need to have like Warner Brothers on your side if you want that to be your second movie.
But yeah, I know I'm controversial to begin with. Just wait till I offend everybody. You guys are going to love it.
Exactly, and that even speaks to that. Actually, I still at the time that it was made, I can still say it's a miracle that it did at the time that it was made, because it at that point in time it was to be. It was funded by them, but it was to be released by Miramax, which at that point was owned by Disney. And Disney absolutely refused to release this movie on the grounds that no, we're a family-based company, and we're getting a lot of calls about this. A lot of
can you imagine the Disney logo in front of this movie? I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I understand that.
Yes. Yeah, and it's it really, because I mean, and it's not like it would have been the first R-rated Disney movie, because I mean, Disney at one point I think owned Touchstone or something. So the actual Disney banner wouldn't have been in front of it, but Disney is the parent company, so it would have affected them in some way. But that's why the movie actually ended up being distributed by Lionsgate. Because they ended up just taking it off to some, which at that time Lionsgate really wasn't much of anything.
No, they were still kind of coming to their own. I mean, they had their own big era, but they're still very, very new. But I mean, it just, I understood why Kevin waited as long as he did to get this made, because by his fourth film, he had some heavies behind it. You're right. You do need the big names. You have to have that to approach it. Plus special effects and everything else. Because you can't. Clerks was $50,000 or something like that. You need more than that to get any kind of semi-believable angel effects or the sheer editing of it or the locations. You need more than that to pull it off properly. And even then, I think he approached it as a low-budget film. He definitely cut corners, and he found ways around, taking down the budget, but you still need a fairly high minimum budget.
Oh, definitely. And this, I think it's, by industry standards, a lot of them will say it is still low budget, because I think this was maybe like 10 or 11 million, if I'm not mistaken. And it's like, what they were able to pull off with that is,
Oh, yeah, that's inexpensive by pretty much any other standard.
Yeah, and but it's crazy because there's some CGI wings in this movie because the angels flying. We get to see Ben Affleck fly. It's really,
and it's really it hasn't aged too bad. I mean, 99 was a weird 99 was a weird time for CGI. It was just kind of coming around, and a lot of stuff of that era didn't really age that well. Like you can see the strings, like it's really bad animation. And the wings are a little cheesy in points, but for the most part, they're really good. For the most part, you can still look at it and not think that it's not believable.
Definitely. And it's and I mean, as far as like gathering the cast for this movie, the names, I mean, it's there are definitely a lot of famous people in this film, and a lot of them were friends with Kevin prior to really becoming famous. Like, for example, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, like Matt had a small part in Chasing Amy, and Ben, of course, was the lead in Chasing Amy, but when that came out, they were nobodies. Nobody really knew them, but Dogma was like right after Good Will Hunting had hit. I mean, I think they were filming Dogma during the time that they had won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting. They were filming Dogma.
Right, so just swept up in that craze where Matt and Ben were the hottest thing around. And like their debut after Good Will Hunting is this really controversial thing.
And but it ended up being a hit. And I mean, not only that, but they also got Chris Rock is in this movie, and who was
Janeane Garofalo, everybody's in this movie. Well, people from the 90s are in this movie. Yeah, if you were big in the 90s, you were in this movie. Chris Rock, Janeane Garofalo, Ben Affleck and Matt Damon.
George Carlin.
George Carlin. Jason Lee was still, riding the high of Mallrats. He was still very young in this.
Yeah, definitely. And he plays a very different character in this. It's like it's kind of interesting to see him play. I mean, of course, we do know him later. He would play the villain in the Incredibles movie for Disney, but
which has a little bit of callbacks with this.
Yeah. It actually they actually do. Because I had rewatched the Incredibles recently. They actually do reference Dogma at some point. He says the character's name or something, but I caught it. And I was like, no way, that is amazing. But
I was looking at some of the people that were considered for Azrael for Jason Lee's character, and really no one else would have pulled it off. Like apparently Adam Sandler was going to be Azrael, and he turned it down to do Big Daddy. And for the life of me, when I was rewatching it, I was trying to picture Adam Sandler in the role, and he can't do the line readings the same way. It wouldn't have come off the same way, even if it was even if it was Adam Sandler still somewhat in his prime, it still wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, I really couldn't see Adam Sandler. I mean, I think Adam Sandler's a terrific actor, but it's really, I don't think I could picture him as that character. I hadn't even heard about that. This is the first time hearing of that.
Yeah. There were a couple others, and it's sort of, it may have worked with some of them, but Adam Sandler really, he apparently made it in the running, but he actually turned it down to do Big Daddy instead.
That's crazy.
And, I mean, he almost had it. He was almost in the role. I don't think it would have worked. I mean, you need another Kevin Smith, and a Kevin Smith alumni in there to give the readings it deserves. You need someone you're familiar with to do that. And you can bring more people in. Salma Hayek did great with Kevin Smith's script. He's got these really big names, but you need the right kind of style. I don't think Adam Sandler, especially Adam Sandler at that point, would have had it. Maybe Adam Sandler of 1992, 93 would have had it, but not by 99.
No, definitely. And, it's so funny that you bring up Adam Sandler and Big Daddy, because what's really funny about that is Joey Lauren Adams was originally supposed to play the part of Bethany. Kevin had written that for her, and but the heads of Miramax didn't approve of that because she wasn't as much of a name. They wanted more of a name, so that's why the part went to Linda Fiorentino. But what's funny that you mentioned about that is because Joey Lauren Adams, since she didn't get this movie, ended up being the female lead in Big Daddy.
Big Daddy, yeah.
So it's that's so crazy.
I have another addition to that story. Apparently, another one of the Bethany, someone considered for Bethany was Shannon Doherty. She actually pitched Kevin to be Bethany, and I think that may have worked. I mean, from a storytelling perspective, I think that may have worked because it'd be a continuation of her Mallrats character. I think maybe. And I think that would have actually fit really well. But when that didn't work, and she wasn't a big enough name. But so, just trying to rewatch it with the fresh eyes of would Shannon Doherty have fit the Bethany? And the more I look at Linda Fiorentino and how she played it, she seemed kind of annoyed the whole time. And to be honest, she might be the one weak link in the whole film, which is strange because she's technically the main character, but she seems to be the one having the least amount of fun.
Now that you bring that up, it's she does definitely seem to have the least amount of fun. And I think I will say though, there is if you happen to get a copy of the DVD, which if you can, good luck. But if you happen to get a copy of the DVD, there's actually a deleted scene that provides a little bit more of insight into Becky into Bethany's backstory, which really kind of sets the stage for why she acts the way she does. In this, they kind of reference it a little bit in the finished movie, but she has a scene in the deleted scene in the abortion clinic when she's actually performing an abortion for a client, and during it she's explaining that this really long, very well written, but also very depressing bit of dialogue by Kevin. That's a story about how she had gone for just a routine pap smear, and they had used unclean tools. So because of that, she had to have a full hysterectomy and couldn't bear children for her husband. So her husband ended up leaving her, and it's just this really just very detrimental and depressing story, and that's why the scene ended up getting cut, because it's supposed to be a comedy.
It completely ruins the pace. So, but I mean, having watched that scene and then seeing the rest of Linda Fiorentino's performance, I'm like, okay, I mean, that kind of explains why she went it a little bit. That character, but I mean, definitely in the finished movie, you're right. It does kind of seem like she.
she is the lead, and she doesn't really have quite as much fun. At least not until the end, or in the third act, when they decide that she decides, hey, I don't want to let the family down. Let's do this, and she kind of accepts her role as the last Scion.
And that's sort of the turning point. Her entire personality seemed to change right there, which may be key. It just, she looks almost annoyed at certain points, which is surprising for someone that's supposed to be your main character. Everybody else is good. They're all interacting, but truthfully, when they interact, it tends to be more with Jay and Bob. She's kind of off to the side.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. And I mean, this one actually, I feel like with Jay and Bob anyway, this one kind of, I want to say up until this point, I think Dogma was the one that really gave them the most amount of screen time, like until Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, because they were just like all over this movie, in terms of like, they were, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to use the term comic relief because I mean it's a comedy, but I mean they really are essentially like they're the whole time providing like the most amount of laughs from them.
Which is a good balance compared to the previous movie, where they were barely in it. They were in Chasing Amy for 5 minutes tops.
Oh yeah, for like 5 minutes. Yeah, just that one scene. Yeah. So this one, this one, it kind of really gives them, more of a role and more of a grounding into the story. Like they're actually real, instead of just being kind of, like the dumb stoner guys that hang outside the store. Like in this one, they actually have a purpose, like this is the first movie where we actually kind of delve into them. And we also kind of delve into their sort of relationship a bit, cause like they talk about how, like how they took a trip to Chicago because they wanted to find Shermer, Illinois from the John Hughes movies, and it turns out that there is no Shermer, Illinois.
I can't tell you how common that is. As someone that lives not too far from the John Hughes territory, that is so common. There's a Shermer Road, and every time I pass Shermer Road, I think of John Hughes in this movie.
Oh, wow. That's great.
So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to dive into why this amazing movie is so hard to find, why so few people have seen it. So we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to dive a little bit deeper.
All right. See you soon.
All right, guys, we're back, and we have to talk about the elephant in the room. We have to talk about why this amazing movie is impossible to get. Unless you bought it early on, you really can't find it anymore, and it's not streaming anywhere, which is how most people see their movies. There's no digital copies of it. So the question is, why?
Yeah, it's a real shame because to my knowledge, the movie itself is actually owned personally by Bob and Harvey Weinstein, which we all know that whole
that whole controversy. Yeah.
So because it is owned personally by them, and their whole world is in upheaval right now, doesn't look like we'll be seeing it anytime soon because they own it personally, and I doubt Kevin has the capital to buy it from them. So,
I actually did hear a story recently that I'm sorry to interrupt your story, but I did hear a story recently that just before the Weinstein controversy hit, he actually called Kevin about doing a Dogma sequel, and it was right there, it was on the table, and then he got arrested.
Yeah, and that's the thing is that's really, and Kevin even said how sick it made him feel because he hadn't heard from Harvey in close to a decade, he'd said, and the last time that they had spoken, they weren't really on good terms either, and Harvey just kind of called him out of the blue and was like, "Hey, buddy, how you been? Hey, we got Dogma. Why don't we the 20th anniversary is coming up. We can put it back out on, Blu-ray. We can do a sequel. We can do all this stuff. Why not? And then, the next week is when the story broke. He ends up getting arrested, all that stuff. It seems like, he wanted to call up all his old friends for support in this time, and it's really, he
the worst possible timing. Yeah.
Yes. So,
and of all the ways to gain redemption, I don't know if this movie is how you plead with the masses to get redemption.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Honestly, for the younger generation, we all know what Dogma is. We all love it. But,
right.
Definitely for the younger kids of today, especially since it's not on streaming, they're not going to discover it, at least not now. And it's really, so they're not going to know what it is. In terms of doing a sequel now, I don't really see how you could. I'd be all for it because I'm all for anything the Askewniverse, but
right.
I don't really see how you could pull off a sequel these days. But you never know. Thankfully we got kind of a little mini sequel in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, but
well, we got a little bit of closure on the story, and we got kind of a continuation.
Yeah.
That was really nice. Yeah. But it's a shame that this thing is so hard to find. For older movies, it's understandable. For movies made in the 50s and 60s and 70s, I get that they're obscure. But this is 20 years old. It shouldn't be that. It was playing everywhere, and it's not like it's got obscure people by an obscure director. It's mainstream on pretty much all levels. So there's no reason why it shouldn't be out in the open for everybody to see.
Absolutely.
And make their own opinion about. That's the thing, as controversial as it may be, the hype died down 20 years ago. It's time to see it at face value.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. It's the cast that's in this is insane. In terms of everybody knows who Chris Rock is. Everybody knows who Ben Affleck is. Matt Damon. Alan Rickman, everybody knows him from ever since Harry Potter hit. Even the younger generation knows him. This movie would be, I feel like it would be a hit again if it were to be re-released. But
a re-release would be the perfect way to get it back into the mainstream. Although that's a heavy one to deal with. I imagine the moment the talk of re-release happens, the Catholic League just kicks back in like they've been ready and waiting. Like, I can't believe you bring that up again. Don't you remember? Didn't you learn anything? Repent. And just,
Exactly. Yeah. I always love Kevin's rebuttal to them always was, guys, the movie has a rubber poop monster in it,
I love putting the DVD in. I always forget that on the DVD, the moment you press play, there's a woman comes up and she's in hell telling you to take the disc out now while you still have time. Yeah. Like, he's doing everything he can to get you to not watch this movie.
That's right. I forgot about that. You're right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. She says a lot of funny stuff too. Depending on what you click on, she'll say a bunch of ridiculous stuff. But yeah. So funny. But yeah, it's I really wish then. I do hope. Because with this industry, you never know what'll happen one day. So I really hope that at some point, the rights to this movie will be bought by somebody that wants to actually put it out there, or I hope that it's even, going to be for sale. I think that's also
it is for sale. It is on Amazon. Actually, I did a little bit of looking. It's there. It just becomes so obscure. It's become expensive. To find the DVD is $40 on Amazon, and a special edition is $80. It's crazy.
Yeah, and if you want the Blu-ray, then
it's just I didn't even look at the Blu-ray. If it's available on Blu-ray, it's crazy. But I do occasionally see it in dollar bins, or I did for a while in dollar bins, and then it just vanished. I really wasn't aware that it was so hard to get until recently, because in my head, this is something that's available. Like, I grew up with it. Why wouldn't it do that?
Exactly, yeah, and it baffled my mind because I think it went out of print maybe it just kind of in the recent years. I want to say within the last 5 years or so, I think is when it went out of print, and that it really it kind of baffled me because Kevin even had it available on his site, the Jay and Silent Bob Secret Stash website. They had it available there, but because it is out of print, they had it for a ridiculous. It was like an $80 price for the DVD. I mean, Kevin signed it, but still, it's it's crazy to to think that it's like this part of the Askewniverse is like so hard to access. It's like a piece of the puzzle is kind of going away and missing.
And that's part of the reason why it was so nice and comforting, is this was the one film that felt like nobody in the rest of the Askew universe talked about it. And truthfully, there's really the reason why they should. This is almost a side adventure for everybody.
It's true,
it intersects a little bit, but it doesn't really intersect with the main characters enough. Like nobody in the original trilogy has any real interaction with anybody in Dogma, but at least in the reboot, Jake kept kind of casually talking about it. I met God herself. Stuff like that. Just random offhand things that let you know that Dogma was real. Dogma happened. Like he just kind of mentions, like last time we were in Illinois, we were trying to find sugar, and now we're here, and like little things that I guess you wouldn't naturally talk about in conversation. You're not going to say like, "Yeah, you met God," but you'll say like, "You're in Shermer to find, an abortion clinic like 25 years ago."
Yeah, exactly. So there are those little subtle references, and I mean, even Matt Damon reprises his role as Loki for kind of just a minute there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we've talked about this in the past too, and this has come up in other shows. But Thor Ragnarok, when we were talking about reboot, that conversation came up. It was Loki in Thor Ragnarok, and that was a Dogma reference.
Yeah, it was, and that actually is a legit Dogma reference because, and it's kind of funny how it all comes full circle because Chris Hemsworth is actually a fan of Kevin's and actually listens to his podcast, and he had heard Kevin say on one of the podcasts, Kevin had made some kind of just the off the wall comment about how Thor: The Dark World's fun, but it's not as fun as watching Iron Man or so, just something to that effect. The Thor movies are good, but they're not as good. He's better when he's with the Avengers. And Chris Hemsworth kind of took that to heart and was like, well, crap, if Kevin Smith does this, we gotta up the ante. And then Thor Ragnarok became this huge, like, awesome, fun, movie that you can watch over and over and over. And it's so that reference to Matt Damon kind of playing the Loki within the play in that scene was kind of a little nod to Kevin. And then that ends up coming full circle because Kevin ended up getting Chris to be in Reboot for a cameo appearance. So it kind of all came full circle there.
So the question is, all right, so obviously this affected Kevin and how he did things. I mean, we've talked about this earlier. He's got more and more success with every single movie. And granted, it was mostly cult. And he's stuck with sort of the cult crowd. But by now, you go from on the fringes, you talk Clerks, where no one knows him at all. And then Mallrats, where he's gotten a little bit more credibility and a little bit more budget. He can hire some names. To Chase and Amy, where he just lays down the gauntlet as a definitive 90s indie filmmaker. He is someone you're going to remember. I mean, if it was iffy by Clerks and Mallrats, it's Absolute by Chase and Amy. And then he follows it up with this, which is going into the new millennium. By this point, the 90s are ending. So the question is, how did it affect Kevin? How did it affect the Askew universe? How did it affect what came after? Because it's a big thing. Because he almost got this movie kind of shut him down. He's trying to go bigger, but no one wants to see it.
Yeah, and this movie really did affect him in many ways. The whole production of this movie. I mean, not only with receiving the threats from from the Catholics and from just the religious organizations, like not only from all that, but the production of this movie, he saw him, meeting his wife and his future wife, and getting to ended up becoming a father and moving to Los Angeles. All of that took place during both the production and the release of this movie. So it's like, like his life completely changed during this year, during the whole course of, the making of this movie. So it really, I imagine it, it affected him profoundly not only in terms of the protests, but also just, everything that was going on at that time.
Well, and we've talked about this a little bit in the past with our other shows. Mm-hmm. It seems like what happens to him personally is immediately reflected in what happens to him in his films. He takes everything that happens and adds that autobiographical element to all of his films, no matter what the film is. He's done a bunch of different genres, and he still puts a huge chunk of himself in every film.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, even with this one, at the end of the movie when it's revealed that Bethany is pregnant, that was shot during a time where Jen Schwalbach had just become pregnant with Harley Quinn Smith. So it's he just adds those little, just those little tidbits that kind of reflect his own life, and it's. That's one of the things that I really love about him, because that's like, that's kind of how you. I feel like Kevin's always really been a really accessible celebrity to everybody. He's always chill to talk with everybody. All of the Q&A events that he'd do for his fans, everything, and it's really, just the fact that he puts so much of himself into these movies. Like it's like we all know him. Like he's like he feels like
one of
he's
us.
A friend to all of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and more so than with other directors. But it's
Definitely.
Yeah, it feels like this movie especially feels like, because he is Catholic, it feels like he's having a conversation with the audience. It's not he's not telling you what to think. He's trying to start a dialogue with you, which is very much how he is. If you've ever sat down with Kevin and tried to even have an interview with him, the interview quickly turns into a conversation. It breaks down into it's not him versus you, you're equals. And that's really what's represented in his films too, in the way he directs.
Oh, definitely. And that really, it really, it really speaks volumes to his character that is, how he is. And, that's also another thing that I didn't even think about until just now when you brought that up. In terms of his own Catholic upbringing, it's like, he was raised Catholic, and he still identified as Catholic during the making of this movie. But this movie was kind of the start of, and I think a lot of the backlash from the Catholic League had helped influence this a little. But this was kind of the start of his agnosticism and eventual atheism. He said now he's not really religious at all, but there for a while he really was a devout Catholic. He still attended mass. There was in the documentary of Clerks 2, they talk there's a bit where him and Mosier go to mass before the production of the movie, because that was a tradition of theirs. They would go to mass and pray before the day one on every movie. So it's like, I imagine he doesn't do that anymore, but yeah,
right.
For the first 6 or 7 movies, that was the thing. So,
well, I'm just trying to picture him going to mass before filming Dogma. It's just sort of it's both ironic and fitting at the same time.
Definitely. Like, Lord, please forgive me for making this blasphemous. But yeah, it's that's another thing too. Is I thought it was funny how it's like someone that and that's another thing that really stands to his character. He's getting all these remarks and threats and protests from the Catholic League, while he himself at the time is also a Catholic, and he's like, guys, we're having fun. It's a story. It's a movie. It's meant to make you laugh. It's not. We're not saying this to slight your religion in any way. It's just it's just a fun movie.
Well, hence the disclaimer at the begining. The long disclaimer at the beginning.
Very long disclaimer.
Offense platypi everywhere.
Yeah. We apologize to all platypi enthusiasts. What?
I do remember being in the theater, not knowing what was coming, and just the sheer silence as people watched it, as that disclaimer kept going and going, and the laughs got louder and louder and louder because no one knows what's going to happen. No one expected that.
Yeah, that was genius. Yeah, just it's like 6 different cards of disclaimer, just one after the other.
So I think we're going to have to wrap this one up, but there's so much more to talk about in coming episodes. We're talking about the latter half of Kevin Smith's work, sort of the second half of as we enter the 2000s and beyond, which brings us into the cartoon and many other different mediums that he would branch out to. So it's a fascinating ride, and there's so much more to talk about. We can't wait to talk about it with you.
Definitely, we cannot wait. There's so much more. We got Clerks the cartoon, Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, Clerks 2, and of course all of the other non-View Askew films. So it's really, it's going to be a blast. I can't wait.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, this has been our Askew View.